Welcome to
Oh,
Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Burgio, Mark Novak, episode 217, and we're going to be talking about the problem child, looking at a property with problems. It's
and
burning, concrete cancer,
the
fire
Leaning Tower
upgrade,
of Pisa next to me
leaning
here with
tower of Pisa.
all three of
And
us this morning.
good morning, Mert Property Images. I think this is a great topic to talk about because a lot of buyers do steer away from properties that have those perceived issues.
Yep.
Some of it rightfully so, and some of it you've just got to. The big thing is because if you look at a pool of 10 buyers, 80% won't look at it if it hasn't had the in our area. A lot of buildings have to get the fire upgrade, so maybe only half have done, and that means half still need to go. And there's a lot of buyers who won't look at those properties if they
Okay,
haven't
what are
been
the
done.
fire upgrades? What are the fire upgrades?
So fire upgrades apply to the strata building with fire signs, the railing, extinguishers, sometimes the doors. There's a lot of upgrades which can basically cost between $5,000 to $20,000 per
Yep,
property.
yep. And even the some of them need sprinkler systems installed to that degree.
Oh,
Some of
that's
them
yeah.
need some of them need to be hardwired back to a main board that reports a fire to the fire authorities.
Yep.
Um, and a lot of councils have basically told all the unit blocks you need to upgrade your stuff, and you've got until this date. So you've got, and then a lot of them, what council actually chose to do in enforcing it is they chose to do it over elongated period. So, and rather than saying, we notice you got a fire issue, we want it fixed straight away, some of them have given 1, 2, 3 years by not acknowledging or
Yeah.
acknowledging and giving time to unit blocks.
Here's
So,
the list. I got it. Fire safety measures include but not are limited to fire main and water supply services, fire hydrants, fire shutters, windows, fire doors, fire dampers, fire wheels, fire extinguishers, smoke detectors and alarms, smoke exhaust
yes,
systems, automatic
yes,
sprinkler system, emergency
yes.
lighting. Lighting's a big one. They add up.
Emergency
Standby
lighting.
power systems, emergency lighting, exit lighting, and signs, fire
Yep.
certificate. So, yeah, so they've given a bit of time. They didn't just say, hey, there's go to this
No.
by 2 months. That's good.
And you can buy so you know those old red brick unit blocks. You can actually buy one of those, and a fire order has not been issued on it yet, but will be. So you've got to be, if you're buying as an investment property or as a first home buyer, you've got to be a bit of a fire eagle and keep an eye out on stuff like that. So the way to identify it when you walk in is normally in the main, it has to be a really obvious place for a fire department to find it, but normally it's in the main lobby of the unit block. There will be a switchboard which will say fire, and that's when there is a fire, the fireys will go to that board. They'll identify which unit and which fire sensor has gone off from that board. Now, if the unit block you're buying does not have that board, it's going to have to most likely have the upgrades, and those upgrades can even cost as much as 20 grand for that one unit. So
It's big money.
you really got to keep an eye out for it. Yeah, but you can turn lemons into lemonade. You can actually ask for a greater discount off that from the owner, and I'm sure the owner might know, or if they don't know, they can be educated by their agent. If you may see that say, okay, it's 10 or 20 grand cost, I want 30 or 40 grand off.
Yeah, and we're seeing that. Like if a unit's 800 grand, we're seeing interest levels potentially 730, 740, 750. So, but one way I think is a really good way people can think forward, and it's also structuring that deal where we've seen really smart owners, because it's hard enough to get that loan for 750, let alone pulling out another 20 grand for an upgrade. So what
Yeah.
you can do, Mark, that we've seen some owners do, let's say the agreed price is 730. They've said, let's put 750 on the contract, and you give me a 20 grand cash rebate. That way
for
you're
the
getting
for the fire
services. That way you're getting the full amount by the loan, paying minimal interest, and you're getting the cash there. Because Mark, 20 grand can be the difference of getting a loan for 700 and a loan for 800. So it can really, that cash can really affect your borrowing capacity.
That can knock out 80% of your buyers on a property. So
Yeah.
for a buyer, that can knock out 80% of your competition if you're buying a property that it's a bit of a dud that you can fix.
Yes, and then what else? What about concrete cancer? I think that's another big one as well, where a lot of people steer away from it. They're fearful of it,
Yeah.
and if there's any signs of it in the past or future, once again, 89% of your buyers are knocked out. But again, you get the correct advice and you investigate it. It actually
Yep.
you can turn that lemon into a lemonade. What are some signs there, Mark?
Okay, so with concrete cancer, guys, it's called concrete cancer because the concrete gets cancer. And what people mean by that is when you actually pour concrete, you pour steel into concrete. So it's called reinforcement. So otherwise, the concrete would be just like putty. It would just, it wouldn't hold its form. So the reinforcement in it is actually steel grids that go in it. You'll see it just before they pour the concrete. You'll see the steel in there. Now, if that steel, it'll be great if we can get a photo of it.
Yeah, I'll look at it.
When that gets poured, a good concreter leaves good coverage above the steel. And the reason why is that steel more often than not, it's just too expensive to use steel that doesn't rust, to use galvanized steel. So what people actually use is just raw steel. Now, raw steel is okay when it's buried into concrete, it won't rust. But the problem is there's a reinforcement there. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is, see that far right image?
See how there's cursor on it?
Yeah, that's it. See how there's like 2 inches of concrete under the steel?
Yep.
Well, if that's been laid properly, they'll also pour, a couple of inches above that steel. So they bury the steel. Now, what actually happens is over the years of 30 or 40 years, yeah, great, there it is. If that steel was put down poorly, for instance, the side pops up and even sometimes protrudes out of the concrete, when that starts to get rusty, what actually then happens is the rust, believe it or not, rust is very, very strong when it oxidizes, when it gets oxygen and when it gets salt on it, it'll start to expand. So then it'll start to actually work down through the slab. All the steel will start to rust. It'll start to push up the concrete, and then you'll start to see that on the side of the building, that rust. That rust coming down the side of the building. There it is there. So concrete cancer. So believe it or not, that steel will actually become 10, 20, 30% bigger in its form because it's rusted, and that will start pushing away slabs of concrete. Sometimes balconies will fall off buildings. I own a property where it's happened. That's okay. That's what it is. How is it good for you, Michael?
Well, the good thing is, like with any property, competition drives the pricing up. And there's a lot of things a buyer will look at. If it doesn't tick those boxes, they won't buy it. For example, the fire upgrade, the concrete cancer. So another thing is get your reporting of how significant, like we've seen concrete cancer, it all gets put under this umbrella of no good, can't buy the property. But it can vary from a $2,000 repair or a $50,000 repair per unit. So, but a lot of the buyers don't even investigate how severe it is. So the big thing would be investigate it, find out if it is $1,000 repair or a $50,000 repair and how that affects. But once, just like the fire upgrade, if it is 20 grand, you may be able to negotiate 50 or 100 grand off the price because the owner obviously wants to sell, and a lot of buyers won't be negotiating. And same advice as the fire, you may be able to negotiate it more of a cashback sort of structure, or the owner may even pay for it. We've had owners pay for it.
Pay for it, maybe tax deductible.
Yes, that's a big thing as well. So I think like the big tip out of today is just because there's this perception of something that's bad, don't just not look at it. Go a little deeper. Investigate. there's generally a lot of, especially in strata, Mark, there's always a lot of owners involved. So they're
It's
generally
like with
pretty
you.
good on the
It's like with
reporting.
you, Michael, when you were 50 kilos more.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
You just keep plugging away.
a girl could have married you. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Could have got me when I was 50 kilos.
Could have
The
got you in
standards
50,
a lot lower.
and then you.
But now,
Yep.
sky
And now,
high.
it's
Gotta
sky
be a
high.
model. 10 out of 10.
Sky,
Minimum.
yeah.
An angel.
They could have got you cheap 5 years ago.
Never knew about this. Thanks, Mert Property. Thank you, Philip. Excellent stuff. Appreciate you guys loving the content. We do put on. If you're on Instagram, it is on Facebook on Novak Properties streamed. Then it is podcast. So if you love it, share it. Tag someone that it may
Love it,
help.
share it, tag it.
Use.
But
Anything else, Mikey?
the tax deduction, I think, one is a big one, because if it's an investment property, and you need to speak with your accountant on this, but you may find that repairs or maintenance will be tax deductible. So you may actually be taking, if it's 30 grand of work that needs to be done in the future, you may actually find that you can not only discount 40-50 grand off with the owner, but you can then get the tax deduction of 30 grand off when it does get done. And often it happens or gets staggered over the period. So with these special levies to fix the fire order or to fix the concrete cancer or things like that, often it's just not a wallop of a figure. It's actually not. They stagger it over a year or 2 or 3. And I've even seen some body corporates get loans for it.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. So, and Mark, you know what the best thing is? When there is an issue, it's a great time to do something else to the building. So you may do new balconies, you may render the property. It's time to value add.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's the biggest thing. It's a great, when people are very reluctant to do anything to a property when there's nothing wrong, and they don't do the new carpets, they don't do this. But if you're already doing the work, add some value. There's a lot of apartments out there that could do garages, but they didn't have it, but they could do it. Render the front of the building. It adds huge value. Add balconies to a property, or larger balconies. Like, redo the carpets inside. I think you've got to look that extra couple steps further when you buy a property, or buying a property with a problem. There are actually some really good value adds to it.
Yeah, I own a property in Curl, and it was the first property I ever bought. And I remember I rocked up to the meeting after a couple of years, and my balcony fell off. Like the corner, sort of a meter of it, actually fell off. So it got really urgent. So we're in the strata meeting, and everyone was there, and there was like 1 or 2 of the people saying, "Look, Mark, you're a real estate agent in the local area. If we rendered the building, because it's this it's this tan color brick, blondie, sort of not the best looking." They said, if we rendered the building and put new balustrades, do you want to grab Jack?
Jack. You need the keys for the vacant properties of 434. There'll be 2 or 3. Sorry guys. We're still working. We're here. Nothing stops. We just keep going. We keep going.
So the story goes, they go, look, if we understand we have to spend 30 grand to do the concrete cancer to replace some of the balconies and get it fixed, but Mark, what do you think if we spend 45 grand, an extra 15 grand on top, and we render the building and we do new balustrades? And I was like, look, if you do that, we're going to add 100 grand to the value of this property for sure. So we're actually killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, because you know what? People love the older buildings, but it just misses the point on a couple of the new items. You know what I mean? Like they love the new because it's been standing there, but they wish it just looked a bit nicer, or the new carpet painted. Because I think the biggest thing people don't do especially when there's a lot of owners in a building, where they don't have to necessarily got overseas owners, and it's quite easy to make decisions as a body corporate. Like, they should really be reinvesting back into the property. Like, Mark, we've seen buildings where everyone's owned it for 20 years. They bought it for 80 grand. It's now worth $1 million a pop, but the building looks like the same. Like, our biggest tip will be reinvest into your building, just because you're a strata building. And a lot of people think, well, just because it's strata, I can't do anything. You can. You can do a lot with it, and it can cost you a lot less, because you're splitting the cost for everyone.
You got to push.
So I think,
And you know what happened in my unit?
what happened?
They all said no.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing as well.
They said,
Spend 20
they
to make
said,
100 grand. Everyone votes no.
yeah,
It's,
no,
it happens.
no. Yeah, get an extra 10, 15 grand, make 50 from that. No. We don't have 35 grand. Fair enough. Okay, so it never got done. Consequently, and I also said we've already got the scaffolding on the building. That's why it's so much cheaper to do the render. That is why it's so much cheaper to do the balustrading, because we've already got the scaffolding coming for the building. Yeah, no. And the thing that killed me the worst was 5 years later, they wanted balustrades. And I'm like, we could have done this for cheaper earlier. It cost double. It really did.
So some big tips I reckon as well, Mike. There's I'm seeing it a lot more. I'm seeing it. There was a building in Queenscliff Road on the water there where it scaled back the land, and you had the units, and then this big, just this vacant land below. And what an owner did, he did a deal with Strata where they needed upgrades for $500,000. He goes, I'll pay that, but I want that airspace. So I'm going to put an apartment there. And he did, and they got it approved. So there's, I think now where land's so tight, people are looking for value, JVs are out there. I think there's a lot of old unit blocks where you could actually get more units, you could go higher. So I really think, just like we did a talk with, g'day Craig Martin, thanks for jumping on. We did a talk with David Allen about unicorn properties. There's also the abilities within properties where you may be able to get more density. Like, how cool would it be? Everyone puts together, they do, say, $1 million upgrade, and they get an extra 2 units as an ownership, rent them out, and then you've got
Bondi Beach does that a lot.
Yeah, does it?
Bondi Beach does it a lot. Yep. You'll see the old fella, and then you'll see this sick penthouse in black on top.
Yeah, Luke Moroney makes a good point. Chart owners don't want to spend. It is a tough thing, and it does make me realise why people love to buy a house where they can do it, or if they buy a unit, they try and buy the whole block, because there are some really good opportunities out there where you can make money, and everyone just votes no, exactly what you just said. So, do you know if the strata laws 75% count for strata units? If everyone votes 75% for,
I believe so. I believe that's what they need to get fire audits approved, up and running, and any works or anything like that. I believe so. Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to add on this month? Or we're good.
We're going to be a beautiful day.
Yeah. Let's let it go. Whatever I was going to say. All righty, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Dickie, all for tuning in. Craig, all the best.
See you guys. Love you. See ya. Bye.
Bye.